So super excited to have Demi and Jen on the podcast today. They're two of my widow sisters. Our group chat is pretty spicy at times, but we love each other for it. But Demi and Jen and I all come from different parts of widowhood, but we're all the same. We're all part of this club that no one wanted to be a part of. So we wanted to talk about a few things that kind of like goes on with widowhood or makes you different in widowhood, being terminal versus sudden, or kids versus no kids, and dating again, etc. So we're excited to dive in. But yeah, I'm just curious on your guys' personal. I know Demi, Michael had terminal cancer, and for Jen and me, our Ryan and Colby's deaths were more sudden. But I'm curious, what was your experience as a terminal widow compared to a sudden widow?
But I would say in the widow world, we are considered the luckier ones. And not that it is really luckier, but it is nice that we got to plan a bit more. We got to have a lot of great conversations at the end. I think when you're given a timestamp on your life, like, I think anybody's conversation would be, and people you just love more fiercely. you you have a lot of hard conversations that most people our age don't think about having, and so that was a great blessing. Um, of him being diagnosed, but the other hard part was he was diagnosed with stage 4 when my son was 7 weeks old. So trying to manage being a new mom, new wife, and cancer. I mean, being a caretaker, it's just rough. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So while it may be nicer that we have conversations, it was just really just watching your loved one decline so slowly and just really not knowing where it was going to go. I mean, you're given a time stamp, a lot of us. Also, like in the world, the doctors will never promise you anything. They'll also never tell you what route to go down medically. And so a lot of it is just this like awful journey of, am I making the right decision? And then as you continue to watch them decline, yeah, it was, I would say, pretty, but also such a blessing that Michael and I got to have so many conversations of like what we want for Declan in the future, even remarrying. That conversation about dating again and what he wants for the finances, and so I'm just very grateful. I still have a lot of letters, and even just now, I'm using Michael's computer. I pulled up a piece of paper, and he had written every login and password to everything on that. And that is something I do not take for granted because I'm sure you guys have experienced so many situations where you can't find the password to log into something. So
Well, I love that you're using Michael's laptop. That's special. Do you think, as you were talking about like being a caregiver, do you think that there was, I know obviously there was a lot of pressure on you. Do you think it's more people questioning you how like Michael's doing and like not thinking about how like what you may need as a caregiver too? Like I know your brother passed away suddenly as well, and just the difference between you and your sister-in-law and kind of the way that you were both treated, if that makes sense.
yeah, I think um, I think a big life lesson I've had going through this is nobody understands. And that goes for me for a lot of things too. Even me or walking through this, like before I even had kids, like I was probably the worst son to my friends who have kids, and so I try to have a lot of grace for people in our community or people who try to support us. Um, who probably didn't, you know, check in enough or reach out enough because I will say like the caretaking era was just probably the toughest season of my life. And just I was just really burnt out. We needed a lot of help. And I think a lot of people will say like, hey, let me know if you need anything, and that is so sweet, but like most of the time they will never ask you. Or people will just check on Michael would check me like, hey, how's my doing with him and wanting, you know, updates on everything, but when you're just so burnt out time and energy. But also, like, there were so many times I wanted to cry. He's kind of okay. As okay as you can be, but like, I was like, I was trying to keep the family together. I was probably running on no sleep for the week. I was like, I'm not trying to be a victim or a pity party, but I have such a big heart for people going to the caregiving one now because I would say that's one of the toughest seasons I went through. There's almost this like sense of relief you have when your loved one does something like that. I know that sounds awful. It's not that I ever give up on a miracle for him. It's just that when you watch your loved one decline, though it's tragically and sadly, it's like it is the better alternative for them. So like for the for to be over. And so I would say there's also really grieving involved when you are a cancer widow. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand in my circle too, where a lot of them are still, 2.5 years later, starting to slowly process that Michael's gone. We're starting to have to face those conversations. Whereas for us widows, it's like our everyday life. Like we don't need to escape it. And I would say I started probably slowly processing the baby. Well,
It's interesting you say that, obviously on so like much scalar situation. For me, when Colby was helicoptered away and we were down in the basement, I looked at my mom, and I feel like those 4 days he was in a coma, I started grieving a bit too, because I knew, and like people were praying for miracles. And I looked at my mom and I was like, I'm gonna have to pick an outfit for my husband's funeral. Like, I feel like you're so in tune to your partner, which is like what marriage is all about, that you just like know. And it's not like anything compared to what you went through and like terminal and long term with Michael, but there is something for being so connected to your partner that you just like know. And it's not that you're like not hoping for a miracle, like you said, but at the same time, like obviously don't want them in pain.
I don't know if one is worse than the other, honestly, because in my head, I can imagine given 4 days. It's like I wanted every last day with him. It was just like either way, it's just so. But yeah, in my gut, I can't explain it. I never stopped believing in a miracle, and I would never stop being positive for Michael's sake. But deep down inside, I think also as women, as like protectors, and we're trying to be self-protective also. And for me, my son, like I started to like mentally process for my own independence because I'm like, okay, worst case, like if this were to happen, what do I need to do? Like, how do I need to prepare? And it's not that I was actively thinking all the time, but there's just like something in the back of your head, like this may not feel like we may not make it for Christmas. And honestly, Declan's first birthday, I went all out because in my heart, he's not gonna make it. Yeah. So,
Speaking on Declan, both of you guys have kids. So you guys have kids. I don't have kids. I can't imagine watching like a child grieve their parent and help them through their grief while also grieving yourself, because you kind of have to put your grief aside a bit. But I'm also not gonna lie that I feel like people that don't have kids and their spouse dies, you kind of wish that you still had a piece of them here, Earthside. Because I feel like for me, there was a stigma that like I didn't have kids, so like I was gonna move on faster and like I didn't need to worry about it, etc. So curious on like if you guys had a stigma to having kids and like that grief process as well. I don't know who wants to go first, Jen or Demi or
I
whoever.
think this is
Yeah, I feel like Jen's gonna be good at this one.
Well, my kids were 11 and 12 when Ryan died, and he went to work and didn't come home. So we didn't get to, and he went away to a fire that was north, a couple hours north of home, and it was like our normal routine when we were sending dad away to a fire, we'd walk him to the door and, with a fire like that, we don't know if we'll see him in a couple days, a couple weeks. Like, we just don't know. So it was almost this sense of like an unknown of when we'll see daddy again. So it was like this, like, hug him tighter, say goodbye longer, that type thing. And then we, sent him out the door. And then, yeah, I get the phone call that there was an accident and he just wasn't coming home. And so having to tell the kids that, I mean, that's not something I would ever wish on anybody to have to tell them. My son had just turned 11 2 weeks before the accident. And I remember, going to their schools and pulling them out of class, which was obviously so abnormal. Like I was that mom who's like, unless we were all going to Disneyland, like we didn't miss school, like it wasn't that type of, like a common occurrence. And so almost immediately, both kids have since told me that when they were called out of their classroom, almost immediately they knew that something had to be wrong in order to be called out of school. And so walking them through that, I remember I was taught, I don't know, I was just speaking with Emily about this. I had taken a grief recovery course like less than a year before Ryan died. So I learned a lot of things. And so one of the things that I had learned is that with kids, you have to tell the truth. You have to be direct with them. As much as we don't want to have to say the words dead and died and that type thing, like you have to, because they're still young, even at 11 and 12, to say that, we lost daddy today, or, daddy's in heaven, or whatever it is. There's something that's still, even though they're a little bit older, still makes them wonder, well, what do you mean we lost him? Or, well, what do you mean he went to heaven? Or that type thing. So you have to be direct. And I remember thinking when I learned that, like, well, thank God I'll never have to, worry about that. I'll never have to say it. And I remember, having to tell my kids, like, there was an accident this morning and daddy died. And I just said it. And I could see for both of them, like, it was shock. My son literally was like, what do you mean he died? Like, what do you mean? And it just was this, knowing that I was just going to have to walk them through this, but being so direct with it and not hiding it from them, and also not sugarcoating it with them. It was ugly and it was awful and it was terrible. But at the same time, I look at them now at 20 and 19 years old, and they're some of the most emotionally mature human beings I've ever met in my entire life. And it's because I think we just kind of stepped into it. When it was hard, it was hard. When it was ugly, it was ugly. And we just let it be that. And then, when we would laugh, we would laugh. And when, we just kind of were present in every single moment. And I think that was the best thing that I could do for them as a mother, was to, and also to let them see me do that as well. Like I remember one morning I went to open up the blinds and I just, right there on the couch, just collapsed crying because I opened the blinds, like it was just nothing. And both kids come running over and, like, Mommy, are you okay? And it's like, I wanted them to see that it's okay to be sad, because that part's that's not gonna last all day long. It's a moment, and I want to feel that moment, and then we're going to climb out of that moment together. So there was a lot of learning, a lot of mistakes I made, for sure. I'm sure you can get my kids on here and they'll tell you about all the things I did wrong. That's part of motherhood. But I don't think that there was anything with losing Ryan. There were so many facets to losing Ryan, but I think having to see my kids and be the one to tell my kids what happened, like watching them actually try to process that. And I remember the day of Ryan's accident, Brandon came and sat next to me and he said, Mommy, he said, is daddy really dead? I said, yeah, buddy, he's really dead. And he said, like, his heart will never beat again. So even at 11, he was trying to process what it actually meant. Death is it's a really hard thing for adults to process. So walking the kids through that was just, it was heavy. It was really, really heavy, but we didn't shy away from it. I wanted them to come out healthy. And I think that the only way to do that sometimes is to just face it.
Demi, do you think it was kind of similar? I mean, obviously Declan was more younger, but him now, do you think he understands it? I know your mother-in-law sees him quite a bit too. Michael's mom and like Annie are doing a great job being open and sharing about his dad. Do you think he fully understands it yet, or do you think he has memories? Or
Actually, like, why I hear Jen's side, and this is why I would like to see story for here, because this is probably something I can't really relate on. Yeah. When I lost my brother 2 months before we lost Michael, his kids were a bit older, and they fully understood it. And so I was just like, it was sick to my stomach, just like hearing how they were processing it at such a young age. And then when Michael finally passed, I didn't have to deal with it. And so I got to focus on just my grief, which is such a blessing. I do know it will there's just this giant void regardless of any kid, no matter what age they lose their parent. You just have to grow up without that. But yeah, it's actually funny. 2 days ago, we were just, I was just going through my Instagram and scrolling and hearing to every single person. Hey, baby. And so he's very aware. And Jen, I love that you said that because sometimes I feel like I'm being too upset with my kid, and so it's very validating. He knows, daddy died, and he's in heaven, and we have very blunt conversation. And he's with Cece, who is our dog. And so he's aware that Cece died and daddy died, and they're in heaven together. And then at the end of the scroll, he just goes, and you're sad. And it's just like, I don't think he's ever on his own just been, you're sad. Because to be honest, I don't think he remembers daddy. That also breaks my heart because to have to think who Michael was also is so heartbreaking. What a lot he didn't get to experience him on his own. That he'll never. So it was just really sweet to have to say, like, I miss daddy. And I know over time as he gets older, those conversations will evolve. And then that's super inspiring. I love that. Like, you are in home those days, and those are your and maybe the other open.
I don't know if they would agree, but they're probably like, Mom, stop. We get it.
Champion in my books, both of you. Declan also, I feel like, is like a mini Michael.
Yeah, he's all me, and it's funny. Everyone else said, "Oh, he just like that. He does blue eyes and white, and it was great." But then he starts like twerking around people and dancing and having this big personality. I'm like, oh, that's Michael. And I was not that way when I was there. So he's so
That's awesome. Well, you both are doing great in the grief mom journey.
well. And how about I'm curious, like you kind of touch base on not having a kid and what that how are you treated differently? And
I think, I mean, every single part of me wishes I had a kid with Colby, like still to this day. Because I think it would be like a little piece of him here. So I feel like Chester is like the last thing I have of Colby. So I'm so attached to Chester. But I remember, I mean, I talk about it in my book, but like in full honesty, I remember getting my like period right after Colby died because we had been trying for kids. And I remember it like actually hitting me that we would like never have a kid together. And like someone with his like blue eyes and his red hair and like his ears and his nose, and that was really hard. And I think a lot of people just assumed, oh, because we don't have a kid, I'm gonna move on faster. Or like that I'm not like held back as much like in my grief, if that makes sense. But it's also just so hard and in different ways. Like I'll always wish that he also could have experienced being a dad, whether that was for a day or years, because it's something that he also really wanted as well. I feel like Colby literally, everyone always says like Colby died on a high. Like he was in the NHL, we just got married, he was like so happy, but the only one thing that was missing would have been for him to be a dad. So like that will always sting. I feel like that will never go away. But at times too, things happen the way that they happen, whether we agree with them or not. But yeah, I would say that there was definitely a stigma or like a judgment of like, thank God she didn't have kids because it would have been harder if she had kids, or like, thank God that like she can move on faster, where I'm like, no, that's not the case either. But I feel like in any situation, terminal, sudden, kids, everyone just like casts judgment on widows, whatever we do.
I would say
That's the truth.
having a kid also gives you an excuse to keep the memory alive. not like you need an excuse, but like it's like more acceptable. And I would say probably for you, you're probably not.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, for us, I'll always talk about my baby with Declan, and I feel like probably for you, you feel like you're like,
Totally. 110%. I'm just plugging my laptop in quickly. But next hot, spicy topic is red flags, dating as a widow, public eye, people like grasping onto the tragedy, the stories. I feel like widows, I feel like we just want to see the best in so many people. So we kind of have our blinders on and we don't think that we're like lovable again. And I think we make excuses or just are like naive. And I think we get taken advantage of. But don't answer that 1 second. I should plug my laptop.
while we're doing that, let me do the same. Hold on.
How much freedom do we have?
I know.
Full range. Full range.
Man,
It's
actually,
coming out of the group chat. And it's getting spicy.
Let me open up our text. Hold on.
Which issue are we going to address first?
that's a great way to do it. Like, let's just read, let's just show it all.
Can we like screen record? Is that what it is? Screen share.
We would be canceled.
We would actually be canceled.
That's the beauty of having like widow friends.
I feel like there's that meme of like, which is like so morbid to say because we all know each other because of death, but there's like that meme that's like, if you die, like, and you don't want people to like see the group chat, like get your best friend to delete it. And I was like, ooh, that could be Widow Wine Wednesday.
Just bring up the whole thing. I have couple girlfriends locked in on journals and stuff, and I'm like, okay, this is where I keep this. So when I go, just blow past everybody and get to my closet, okay? Exactly.
Perfect. But yeah, who wants to jump in first on the red flags?
I think Demi should just go for
Yeah,
it.
I think Demi should go for it.
Jeff's happily married.
I know Jen and Michael are just like the goals of remarried widowhood. And then there's all the struggle buses.
No, but see, but we have struggles in other areas. We had to blend families and 4 children, so God could only give me like one thing. He's like, okay, I'll make this part easy because the rest is coming. But I think exactly.
Do you think? Okay, so me and Demi will get into this. And
I'll
Jen
just
will
offer my 2 cents.
pipe in. I think it's safe to say that dating as a young widow, you don't think you're ever going to fall in love again. You kind of have a little bit of like blinders on, I would say, because you're almost like grasping to like anything. And I think you may ignore some like red flags and signs because you just don't think that anyone would want to hurt you or anyone would use your husband's death and like the worst possible thing that could happen to you like against you or like for their benefit. Do you think that's safe to say?
Yeah, I think it's like that feel, especially as a widow, that anyone's and it's not just great. Obviously, it's going to be something very watchable now, I'd say. But yeah, I mean, for me, dating again wasn't even on the horizon. Like Michael, I took 30 years to him, and it was like an instant like, and I just knew. And so I remember someone talking to me saying, hey, like if you start dating within a month or 2 months or 5 years or 10 years, like we just want you to know that we support you and we get you and you're trying to again. And I was like, wow, no, dating right now. Did I think I was never going to date? No, because I think it's so unfair. It feels so unfair when you are at a young age. And I think there's a stigma too with that. Like people think like, oh, what if shouldn't move forward because they didn't like their person, you know? And it's like just because you're looking at this awful, terrible thing in life, we also have to be lonely to recognize. So that just doesn't make any sense to me. And I think as soon as we're all designed to like like somebody and to be with someone, no one's meant to be alone. So I went into it like pretty open minded. I very quickly would like to want to just I just knew. Like I just people would just just like want to go on dates and then I was like, well, maybe I'm just not ready. But yeah, then obviously you guys know the situation that I ended up finding somebody and went kind of over heels and was taking a little over and I think that definitely helped in helping me move forward for the first time and just sharing this common love for our partners and understanding that we still love our partners was there. To me, the time was best case scenario. I thought that he was that. He was also a widower, and at the end of the day, like my husband was just such a we had we were five together, but we had such a beautiful marriage that I didn't really think anything feeling dating. I didn't think that was possible. I just thought, everyone was a great person too. I feel like my gut instinct would have been able to like tell better. I'm like, there's just no way he's that person. I'm not saying he's a bad person, but they just didn't get along. Like a lot of things they thought about in the past and financially. So I'm just like I'm still thinking about it now and like so when I do this so good anything that quickly I highly recommend dating for a year. This is something maybe that did very yeah, I just think that through character development, where eventually you start to see like where to go your take a while. Usually on the 8 month mark, people do like the of just being aware of being
Nice. Do you think that I feel like when like obviously Michael loved you so well, Colby loved me so well, or Ryan loved you so well, Jen, that you almost think that like how could someone else how can I word this? Like how could someone not in a say? Like how could or like I feel like I'm not wording this well. Do you get what I'm trying to say here? Jen, do you know what I'm saying here?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
can see that and just really value and respect it. That yeah, 100% valid. Like a lot of people don't think this way at our age. And so I think to have this perspective, and I've always said like, gosh, if I get married again, I'll be a much better wife than I was the first time because the life lessons I've had and the little things that I used to worry about was just good. When you lose your person, you just look so different. And so anyone would be really nasty. My computer is not really fun. Not really.
I can't tell if is my fan making noise? Sorry.
Demi's very quiet
It
though.
ain't me. Hold on.
My thing.
Just making sure we're all, everyone's good.
No, but you can come closer to the thing. When you're closer, you can hear you better. Yeah. Jen, do
Yes.
you want to add anything? to what me and Demi have said.
Yes, because I feel like I've been fortunate enough to be like the big widow sister, like just in age, like getting to watch you girls go through what you have and just the conversations that we've shared. And I do think, I mean, I know I was joking about it earlier, like, oh, like, God made it easy for me and Michael to meet, but because we were like crossing countries and oceans and 4 kids, and, God was like, let me make one thing easier for you guys because you're going to have other things to focus on. But I do also feel that because I had older kids and because I was older, like at the time, like I was 36 when I was widowed and well, Michael and I turned 40, like days after we got married. I almost feel like that was a little bit more like nobody wanted that. You know what I mean? Like nobody was like, that's too much. Like she has teenage kids, she's older. Like, it's like there was nothing in my mind, in my head, that was like overly appealing. So I feel like, okay, like it allowed me the time to just kind of like, I don't know, like be like, I think I'm going to be okay if I'm by myself. You know what I mean? And I think I do think that my age was a factor. I think having my kids older was a factor, that I was just like, whatever, like just kind of like whatever. And so I could kind of like watch and sit back and see what was going on. And then I hear stories about, just the dating world as a widow. And one of the things that I've seen, because again, like Michael and I didn't date. It's like we met and I was like, yeah, I'm going to marry him. And that was the end. Like there was no dating involved in that, but I see it. And then one of the key things that I see in young widows, especially, and I think it's, the same for just single women in general, but for young widows, especially, there's a vulnerability that isn't typically there for other young single women, because not only have you walked through huge trauma, no matter what type of loss, whether it was sudden loss or a long-term illness, like it's a loss that just nobody expects to walk through at such a young age, and so there is a really precious vulnerability in young widows. But then that vulnerability, like, kind of puts a veil over everything, because it's kind of like what you said. Well, our husbands before loved us deeply and loved us dearly. So, number one, why wouldn't anyone love us deeply and dearly? Because we've already experienced that. It wasn't a breakup, the reason we're not with our husbands, So, there's that factor there. But then there's also, like Demi was saying, like, knowing what you guys have been through, how could someone not love this person, this vulnerable, this precious, that's just been broken and slowly pieced back together? And so that's one of the things that I think is so beautiful about young widows, but then I also see it being taken advantage of a lot. And I think now, like, I feel especially protective for like my young widow sisters. And I'm just like, okay, everybody hands off, because these women are so precious and they've been through so much. Like I kind of want to put everyone through a vetting process. Hi, you want to get to Demi? No, like you actually, can I see your credentials? Like, how do you handle emotional situations? Exactly. Like, just give them my email. Just send them to me. I'll be like, no, this one's not good. Like, Demi already knows. I've given her my gosh, her Instagram. I'm like, please, I'm gonna need you to do that. She knows. And then, like, but Emily, even for you, like everything that I've watched you go through, like even before meeting Colin and then meeting Colin, like everything that I've seen, like there's just such a precious vulnerability to young widows that I think on one hand makes you guys so incredibly special and unique. Like I truly feel like and this is not just because I'm a widow, but I really feel that anyone who's fortunate enough to be loved by a widow, like they don't realize what a gift that is, because not only is it they're getting your vulnerability and your willingness and your courage to say, okay, I've had my heart absolutely broken, but I'm willing to try it again. I'm willing to do it again. So they're getting your courage, but then they're also getting your appreciation for life and for love. Like I can guarantee going forward as a young widow, like you love harder than you even did before. And you loved hard before. Like you loved Colby hard. You loved Michael hard. Like you love deep and hard, but now there's a different element to it. There's a different level of appreciation. And anybody who gets to experience that from a young widow, like what a gift. What an absolute gift. So when I see like men or I hear stories about red flags and all this stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, like no, like sleeves are rolling up, earrings are coming out. Like I will absolutely throw down if you're going to come in here and hurt my widow sister. Absolutely. You don't get to do that. She's so precious. So that's my 2 cents.
We love
I'm
you
going to
for
fight
it.
everybody.
We love you for it. And I think it's really special that like we can also look up to you, like me and Demi, and like ask you things or like talk to you about it. And have someone like a big sister, but also understands the widowness. Um, and I feel like, yeah, you're really good at like seeing things for the way that they are and like helping guide us. So I know I really appreciate it. Demi too. So you are
This
great at
is
that.
very
Listen, I'll fight anyone. Just send them my way. That's the other thing that comes with widowhood, right? You're just like, I actually don't care anymore.
It's actually so true. Like, I feel like you do care, but at the same time, you don't care
Right,
at
right.
all. Like, it's like you
There's
care in
no,
some ways.
yeah, there's no middle ground anymore. It's like I either love you so deep and so hard and I appreciate you so much, or I don't have time for this. I have no time for this. Like because exactly. We know life is way too fragile
Thank you.
and way too precious. You know, like it's like there's no time for this. There's just no time for this. So
that stuff is dating too. I feel like that right there. I've learned so much the past year with dating people, wanting friends, and even just like family. Like at the end of the day, like if someone's being rude to you or to you or just being awful people towards you, it's like we have to step. They don't even know. We have to step in. I don't think I realized how much like I didn't have boundaries before.
mm,
And this past year was the biggest lesson on energy, space, here, circle, um, and that's just been one of the toughest stuff.
I think you nailed it there. I feel like, yeah, I didn't realize boundaries. Like you like hear about it when Colby was still alive for sure, and like you kind of, I guess you had little boundaries, but like now I'm like, I'm gonna send a boundary there. I'm gonna send a boundary there, especially when it comes to like certain things. Like when people are like talking about Colby or judging me or like whatever, when like they have no idea that I'm like automatic done. I sound tough right now because I know I cried to the group chat being like, oh gosh, like, is this happening? Like, and I sound so tough. So, but it's so important and I'm really working on it.
It's,
I'm not doing great, but I'm working on it.
it's not that it's not hard either. It's like the most heartbreaking thing to put boundaries. But
mhm.
knowing your worth and also knowing that those people could have survived a day of abuse. And also, they just like they get this privileged life and have their partner there, and they get to just plan a wedding and babies and go on with their lives. Meanwhile, they're judging you hard on everything you do, and they just don't. And so I have just learned. I used to be very resentful about it, but I'm gonna see and I want like boundaries and change some of that. And unfortunately, some people will get it one day, but I can't attack my emotions to help people.
Do you think it's actually so funny that you say that? Jen, you had posted something and I was like, nailed it. Um, I feel like the people that cast the most judgment or like don't want to divide about it or like don't whatever are actually the ones creating the divide or like are actually the ones like making it more awkward or like more toxic or like more whatever. Would you guys agree with that?
Totally. I think what a lot of people don't understand about widows is that we're already beating ourselves up the whole time. Like we're already questioning our own sanity. We're already questioning our own, existence. As far as are we widowing properly? Are we doing it properly? Are we going forward properly? Are we honoring property? Are we properly? Are we letting go properly, like all of these types of things. Like people don't understand that we're already doing it to ourselves. Like we're already battling against ourselves with how we're handling something because we've never done this before. We don't know what we're doing. Every day is a day that we've never ever done. And so then when people who, fortunately, like Demi said, don't know this lifestyle, have never walked these shoes, they just get to go about their lives and, everything's great. And, like, I don't understand why, this widow can't move forward or move on or whatever it might be. They don't even realize that we're literally dividing ourselves in half between past and present. And so they stand on that divide and they're like, pick one, because you can't be in both. Pick one. And they have no idea that we're literally truly tortured inside trying to figure out how to pick one. How do we keep one foot in the past and one foot in the future? And it's really heartbreaking because they don't take the time to understand that or ask the questions, or what does this feel like for you, or what was your wedding day like for you, or what was it like to go and pick a wedding dress for your second wedding, or what was that. They don't ask the questions, and so they can't ever understand. Well, nobody understands until they've walked it, but they can't even gain a slight understanding of what this might be like, or the fact that we are truly battling ourselves the entire time. Like, I've never encountered a single widow who was like, oh yeah, I got this. Like, I had no questions about it. I knew exactly what I was doing and how I was going to do it. Like, she does not exist. She's nowhere in the world. And so it really breaks my heart because they force the divide because they're telling us to pick one, past or present. You can't be in both. And we're already beating ourselves up over trying to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I feel like it comes down to like it's a joke with like a few of my friends and like family, but like I pick up on people that will like only like stuff if it's about Colin, or like only like stuff if like it's about Colby. And it's like, you guys are making it more awkward and like a divide right there. Like, can't we all just accept? But at the same time, that's where boundaries need to be set on my terms, which I'm
For
working
sure.
on.
Like, we're all just trying to live again and survive, and even that takes a lot of credit. And then they are not. And I like to try to my mother asking people where she does me and get to know my heart. Most people will, or just, I don't know. And that's, it's just so frustrating. Like, there's no, we also live in a generation where people don't communicate with people. People are not well, or ask judgments behind your back before just having a conversation with you. And how can you understand something you never lived, and also if you don't even so again, like that.
There's so many professional widows out there that actually aren't widows. Like, so many people think that they're like professional at this all when like they're not.
Yeah, those are always my favorite. I would never. I could never. I would never. And I'm like, okay, well, we were all there too. We were all, I thought I could never either, but here I am. So
Seriously.
I was the best parent.
exactly.
You hear all the non-parents, I'll never do this, I'll never do that. And you're like, okay. I'm not.
Oh my God.
Take a seat.
Totally.
And you don't like wish it upon them that they like
No.
learn it.
Oh gosh,
You
no.
wouldn't wish it upon your worst enemy. But it is wild. Wild to me about it
I
all.
had a lot of falls all out now, but I had friends that were just demanding that for Michael as well, the stuff that Michael wrote as well for that. Like, after a year, like, it would be guys said, like, they haven't been here for us. Because also in Michael's will does it say that those people have to be here for us. He spoke privately to them to be here for us. And they like when it comes time to after their things, they're there. And so one of the things in Michael's will is very dependent on me and his mom. And his mom is just like, and so he is priority. So if she's not ready, nobody is. Because it's all connected. That's what we're doing with it. It's just mind blowing what people say to widows. And I wonder if they even understand that they're just too wrapped up in their own head to like even see how hard it is for us to have these conversations. And like, it's a tiny little shift in conversation. Like, hey, can I have the stuff in the will? Or versus, hey, how can I help you execute the will? What needs to be done? Totally different conversation. A lot more understanding. And you could hear me say, hey, mother-in-law's not ready there. She's not ready there yet. I think we should get more forward versus being upset. It's just funny. I've heard so many stories of widows kind of going through something similar. Just like the thing people say to us is just fine. And if we were to write it down in a book, people would be, oh my gosh, like, why would we do this? We do it all the time.
And it's not always strangers, that have their opinions. It's often the people that are literally living this life with us, but kind of refusing to actually live this life with us.
Yeah.
And that's so hard.
There's just a lot of grace that is needed on top of us loving that. I think when you're a widow, you have so much grace. You know, people would talk about this. Yeah.
Demi just dropped us off at church.
Like letting the group
You have a lot of grace, that's for sure. It's hard giving grace.
It is. And it's hard to give it because then there's that part of us that wants to just be like with the boundaries and all the things and be like, nope, never mind. Just, I don't have time for this. And then there's the moments where we do have to extend the grace because people just don't know. Like they actually don't know.
We have to be so much more like, I think you said it to me one time, like more mature, like, and be like the bigger person so much. Like, I feel like widows are constantly the bigger people when you would think it should be like the opposite. Like we should be given grace and like we shouldn't have to be the bigger people. But I feel like, yeah, majority of the time it's on us.
Yeah. Feels a little backwards for sure. For sure.
If you guys relate to this, but, you know, I was comforting everyone. And I remember my sister saying the same thing, and she's also, my brother was, you know, and she was like, the shock of her life. And he spent all day comforting her. How amazing we're doing, or even just the one very productive, so through the darkness, we've all put ourselves out of the way we manage our emotions, the way we want to live again, light back in our eyes to be parents. It's like, it would be okay if we weren't okay. Yes, here we are. We are okay, and I feel like it's just people try to understand that they didn't. We just forget about it.
I'll give you guys each an opportunity to say one more thought, opinion, suggestion, story, free range. Can be good, can be bad.
Well, hold on. Let me pull up
The funny thing is you do have notes though. Like people won't be able to see that, but you do.
notes. I do. Just because there is just so much. I mean, the only thing that I would, and I think I'd said it before, but with I keep saying young widows, but that's just because this is the beautiful screen I'm looking at of these beautiful young widows here. But I think widows in general, anybody who's willing to put themselves back out there, our grief and our widowhood can sometimes lower our standards. It can sometimes get in the way of what we actually deserve, and I've said before, and I joke all the time, like we deserve like medals, like we deserve someone coming into our life and like placing a medal or like a crown on our heads and be like, like you made it through. I'm so proud to know you and be yours, and that type thing. But the reality is that what we end up doing the opposite to ourselves, because we question ourselves, we question life, we have new fears, like new fears have been unlocked in our life experiences, and so because of that, we allow our grief and our title as widow to lower our standards sometimes and accept behavior that's unacceptable. And for myself, like anytime I'm talking to young widows, and I feel grateful. I'm 8 years out, so I do feel grateful that I can, meet new widows. I hate that I meet new widows. Like I tell you girls all the time, like, hate that I know you, but love that I do. Like I don't like meeting new widows because then it means they're in this god awful club. But I'm grateful for it at the same time, because then it does give me an opportunity to just remind widows that, like, gosh, you deserve so much more than you even realize that you deserve, because the world's not telling you you deserve it. It's only other widows who are telling you that you deserve it, because the world says you deserve to move on but also let go of your past. Like you can't do both things, when in reality, like, other widows know, like, no, you actually deserve that and so much more. You deserve so much more. So my big thing for widows, young widows who want to date again, who want to go out into the world, who are open to being loved again, don't lower your standards, because in reality, because of what you've walked through, because of what you've done, your standards should be elevated to the maximum, because you are absolutely so precious. Like, the Bible talks about a lot of things, but it's very clear what God thinks of widows, and because it talks about it. Like, how special is that? That, like, our category of humans is actually literally in the Bible as being like the ones to be cared for, the ones to be loved, the ones to be nurtured. Like, that's what widows deserve. They so deserve that. So don't let your grief or your title lower your standards. Instead, let it elevate you to the highest level you could possibly imagine, because that's what you deserve.
Really, and I'll add to that with just not only don't lower your standards, but also you are responsible for your own. And I think it's because it's not all for you, but all of us widows are carrying so much and grief and a lot of it, even though we're processing it daily. I know that sounds crazy, but you will bring that thing into your everyday life, into every relationship you're in. So I've just had this like big awakening. I'm a very different person. Not that I was perfect either with my I had my own trauma, but it's just like it's nobody else's responsibility. I'm surprised to get really into therapy. I'm still pushing it myself. I think a lot of times like it feels dumb to go to therapy. I felt that way in the beginning. But it's not a lot of money just to be sad with somebody. I do that with girlfriends for free. Wow, I just really feel like it's I really felt like this light slowly and it's like it's like has to get back to the process.
I love you guys both.
Love
Lucky
you.
to have you both. Um, Thanks for sharing your journeys openly too, because I know it's not easy being vulnerable. So, yeah, thanks, guys.
Love you guys.